Do you fear pneumo-ultramicroscopic silicovolcaniconiosis?
Well, if you have tiny fragments and shards from a volcano in your lungs, that's going to make breathing rather cumbersome. So I guess I fear it next to Mount Shasta since that's the most volatile volcano in the region. We also have a lot of ghost volcanoes up and down the west coast. So it's a probability that is a grave concern. All that pyroclastic flow could come down into our area and smoke us out, you know. 420, dude.
Ugh. So, how did all of this begin?
Well, we found in 2014 that the majority actually wants the smartest to be their leader rather than the most popular candidate. So that means it's a totally new type of government called a noocracy republic. So you're trying to find the smartest person instead of who the most popular is now. So it's with knowledge comes power. It's not with popularity comes power or with money comes power. So you're trying to test to see how smart people are. And Cascadia has evolved into a one nation continent that we see today called Amexa. And this is our new flag for the continent. See, straight off of Fallout New Vegas because Caesar was the smartest ape on Planet of the Apes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So, essentially, you're saying that you'd like for society to finally stop acting like we're still in high school.
Well, yeah, the American public never understood the Declaration of Independence. They never understood the right to life. So the next US election is irrelevant because you can easily end the United States if they fail to understand and uphold the right to life. See, it's an unalienable right to life. That means the government can't take it away, and you can see the American public never understood it because they allow lethal force by police, they acclimated abortion, and they allow execution when it's their job to uphold the right to life in contrast. So it was easy to end America, but you can't get them to stop talking over you. Obviously, they're going to just talk over you in the media and suffocate the messenger like you don't exist. So, G- Generation X is marginalized by the boomer generation who lives in their own psychosis bubble, only listening to themselves. And America has been a fire sale the last 10 years and has since been taken over by a foreign power. So, even for there to be world peace today, I'm going to have to take command of the US military after America ended because it's been hijacked by psychopaths running genocide, and you can see that today. The American public is now waking up to what's going on. You know?
Indeed. How will you retool public education?
Well, I think that family continuity comes first. The problem with our families is they're all breaking apart so easily when you have a carrot on a stick to break the family apart, and the government profits off of that with child support, right? That's just legalized extortion, okay? So they're breaking your family apart. Well, what's the first thing I'm going to teach you? How to keep it together instead. So you'd have monetary incentive instead to keep the family together and model after Libya, who had 50 grand for couples who get married, 5 grand for every baby they have. instead of extorting the man, you know, getting rid of the original father. The child will have a worse life across the spectrum and have an 80% higher chance of incarceration, which was just cruelty under the Eighth Amendment. The entire prison industrial complex was actually unconstitutional cruelty. And uh, you're trying to keep the family together. Well, you would say homeschooling is the best, right?
Indeed.
So what you want is a cross between homeschool and public school, and you want to model after Finland because they're doing the best, right? So how do you do that? Well, you actually cut back school hours. Isn't that ironic? So we're we're giving them mundane tasks, you know, repetitious tasks instead of actually teaching them vocational stuff or anything valuable, like survivalism. You know, how are your kids going to survive in the wilderness if they don't learn it at school? You know, and
And
the
they get
problem,
molested in the Boy Scouts, so.
and this also goes to gun violence today. Well, the American public is not like Switzerland. They're not trained to handle firearms, so
Mm.
it comes second hand when they have a mood swing instead. So they have no discipline for that. So you want to model after Switzerland if you're going to have the Second Amendment like it is, like that. And after a school shooting, you want to have uh, two armed veterans guarding the school and metal detectors, right? If you're going to fund public schools still by donation.
Going back to what you said about parents and keeping families together, I think everyone has seen some example of how, the worst parent is the one who always gets their way because they're they're the bad one. They're the one that's, so they're the one who ends up getting the alimony and the child support, and they're the ones who are talking to their children against their former partner and just being in general a cold human being.
Well, it makes me think of the Nirvana Nevermind cover where there's the baby in the water
Hmm.
and there's a dollar in front of it.
Indeed.
It you see the weakest link in the family, they're going to go for the money instead of keeping the other parent around. And that's not what's best for the child. The government can no longer act like that's what's best for the child given the data.
How would you define it if you bring into the situation an abusive parent, one that is, physically, verbally, and sometimes even worse kinds of abuse?
Well,
What would you say, that they should still belong together, or?
the two deal breakers in relationships are if the girl cheats on you or if she calls the cops on you as a Karen. Sometimes with physical abuse as well, if they're totally incorrigible and they won't stop.
That's exactly what I mean. And the thing is that um, you. Sorry. Let me just ask you this question, and maybe we'll touch back on that one. Are you the Great Reset?
Yes, because what I'm doing is I'm making all governments around the world irrelevant in a way because we know now what the majority actually wants. They want the smartest to be their leader. Well, what's the smartest going to tell you? That nationalism itself is just irrational tribalism. So it's really a stumbling block in the way of humanity's progress. When every nation in the world wants to have the atomic bomb in their own national agenda,
Mm,
that's a recipe for disaster. It shows that we lack leadership as a planet and
mm.
we're headed for mutually assured destruction by having so many national leaders. So to correct that, you're going to have to quit focusing on them as you always have been and focus on the actual leader of the free world when it's never happened before.
Indeed. So, how old is the first king of the continent?
I am 45 years old.
Ooh. So you're not a geezer like usually gets elected.
Well, I was 35 when I became president of Cascadia on the West Coast. And, that is the same ballpark as a U.S. president prerequisite, you know.
Did you invent anything?
Yes, I invented the thermal window generator with Peltier Techs and uh, basic vacuum physics. So uh, we discovered it will start to steam at the top of a tube after 33 feet in the air. Well, that's creating a draw on the entire tube, and you have the differences in pressure. Well, this is going to lead to free energy and the forever fountain, modeled after the barrel pump. I made new rules to chess, you know.
People with creative, intelligent minds tend to do things like that. So
Why not?
you're gonna have to teach me how to play.
I think innovation is more important than politics at this point.
Indeed. I mean, that's why so many people are miserable, because of just the way that it's become. So, what are the greatest threats to planet Earth?
Well, number one is going to be asteroids. So when you have things like ATIP, where we're trying to bump an asteroid out of the way headed towards Earth, well, that's a step in the right direction. But the awful truth is we're very bad at doing it. When we try to budge an asteroid, we don't know what we're doing. We're not good at it. Even if we nuke the thing, we're not good at budging asteroids yet. And that what led to the death of the dinosaurs. They all inhaled so much ash and dust. They all died, and it ended life on Earth essentially
Yes.
for all life.
And that connects back to the pneumo ultramicroscopic silicovolcanicomiosis.
It does. It is
Yes.
a big danger, especially if we're hit by an asteroid, which you can see the moon is littered with asteroid hits. And when we saw that last one hit the moon, it made such a fireball plume. Oh gosh, it spells disaster for, whatever cities nearby it hits, if not the entire planet.
Indeed. What made you want to be a leader?
Well, understanding that the American public never understood the right to life is such a big deal to me. I teach it every day. And Thomas Jefferson said to educate the public to secure our liberties. So we're seeing tyrannical overreach of the former U.S. government regarding freedom of speech. And you can see it creeping its way in with the bureaucracy. Well, we need to teach about personal liberty if there's a medical tyranny trying to run soft kill. It's a matter of life and death at this point. And if you don't let the messenger talk with all your moderator narcissists and your algorithms, well, the public's not only going to miss world history, they might lose their lives over this.
Well said. Do you think journalism is dead in Fallout 4?
Well, I think journalism in Fallout 4 is missing some key elements. I think they're missing Cascadia. A country came and went, and they didn't really talk about it. So we have Fallout Cascadia in production, but even the developers of Fallout Cascadia, are they going to have the Cascadian Doug flag in their game? We don't even know. Piper did not ask these questions.
Do you think she's a bad journalist?
I think uh, when Piper holds a cigarette, she's kind of saying "fuck you" to whoever she's talking to. Like, I'm the journalist here. Fuck you. I have a cigarette, so I think that makes her a bad journalist.
I think we've all encountered at least one person like that in the past. If nationalism is dangerous, how do we make it okay?
Well, you need to consolidate all military leadership of the world and at least have a world army that is consolidated, that is limited. Okay? Otherwise, you're going to have the UN get way too crazy. Uh, Otherwise, you're going to have nations running amok with kinetic expansionism like we see today in the Middle East and genocide. So you're going to have no answer to that as long as you have what I call fractured leadership. So you need to focus leadership and at least consolidate it into a world army so that nationalism can continue. As long as the nations behave, well, it can continue. You can have all these national leaders so long as we have world peace.
Hmm. What should we do about the tooth fairy?
I think the tooth fairy is very controversial because you're teaching that it's okay to lie to your children, right? I mean, is the tooth fairy real? You know,
Some people believe.
we might be pulling a fast one on our own kids, and if we deceive them with the tooth fairy, how are they going to ever trust us? Just like we don't trust mainstream media anymore. It's more important to trust your own parents. So why would we bullshit our own children?
And what about the horses?
I think the horses are important. Car culture has made us all numb and callous. And, you know, this is why uh, hit and runs happen with pedestrians. So I will go as far as to ban cars in Seattle if there's a cop laughing about vehicular homicide. And a step in the right direction was making Mexico City a city of horses.
Hmm. Can you elaborate on alien contact?
Well, I think that uh, the Fermi paradox is dated at this point because we have had alien contact. We had it with the Billy Meyer case, and he came up with the most photographic evidence in the 70s before all this CGI stuff. So uh, you have to look at it more critically, do more research. You know, how far does the Billy Meyer case go? Um, then you have the U.S. government making contact with the Greys, and you have me making contact with the life forms. We have uh, Barney Hill case, so we have a limited amount. We have my friend Ramon Watkins summoning a UFO for ABC 13 News. You know, there's UFO summoners out there. There's Stephen Greer doing something similar with his CE5 events, where people come to one location and they try to bring UFOs with their laser pointers and uh, summon that way. I had a friend bring UFOs in Hollydale Park in California. Uh, you can do it on a personal basis, is the message. You yourself can step outside your house and make contact, just as I have with the light forms, who are essentially balls of light that can turn themselves into any person or animal they desire.
Fascinating. So I heard a rumor that you discovered cats can get you high.
This is true. I coined it cheesing after South Park. So, in South Park, it was a male cat that would squirt you in the face, and he'd go to the land of boobage, and it turned into heavy metal world. But what I did is I tilted my head sideways, and I had this big black fluffy cat named Sap, and he'd just sit there and purr on my head for a full 2 minutes. And when you take the cat off your head, that's when you feel it. You feel like your head is swimming in a cloud. It's probably the cleanest tie I've ever had in my life. A new discovery. Anyone can try at home. And you know, cats are like a healing frequency. So it's like you're healing your head. It's not like something that's going to damage you.
Oh, yes, there are actually scientific documents proving that fact.
It makes you think of the Sphinx. You know, maybe the Egyptians knew more about cats and cheesing than we do today.
Did you know that the ancient Egyptian word for a cat was meow?
Sounds nice.
So, why are you trying to make the most babies in human history?
Well, by having Genghis Khan have the most babies in history, what we are saying is we don't care about the gene pool. We're going to allow the most violent rapist plunder and sack city after city, and we're not going to compete with the guy through nonviolence. That's what I want to do. I want to say, hey, no, we ought to have the smartest person make the most babies, not the most violent rapist.
Indeed. And I know that it can be very hard to choose which side of that line because intelligent people see the world the way it is and don't want to reproduce and so it's kind of a catch-22. So I believe that those are all of the questions I have for you today. So
Well, it was a delightful interview.
likewise.